So bienvenidos, welcome to the 5th Annual Differentiated Fiesta Conference. Our theme, Luchando con Cariño for All Learners, is a call to reach all students de todo corazón, with all your heart. We are grateful and privileged to have you present at Weslaco ISD's Instruction Conference. As you look inside almost any classroom today, you will see a mirror of our country. You find students from multiple cultures, some of whom are trying to bridge the languages and behaviors of two worlds. Students with very advanced learning skills sit next to students who struggle mightily with one or more school subjects. Children with vast reservoirs of background experience share space with peers whose world is circumscribed by the few blocks of their neighborhood. All of these students have the right to expect enthusiastic teachers who are ready to meet the needs of these students as they are and to move them along the pathway of learning as far, as fast as possible. Weslaco ISD's Differentiated Instruction Fiesta Conference seeks to immerse all of our participants in research-based general and breakout sessions focused on reaching all learners. We are committed to learning for our students. You teachers, you make a difference in our students' lives. This conference would never have come to fruition without the arduous work and dedication of persons working in the background. A big thank you to our WISD staff. It's too numerous for me to name, and I will get in trouble as I will forget persons, but thank you for all of you that work feverishly to ensure this successful conference. A huge thank you to Dr. Carolina Lopez, who is the amazing organizer of this conference. Dr. Lopez, muchísimas gracias. We congratulate you on being named the new principal of Silva Elementary, future home of the Rudy Silva Jr. Dual Language Academy. Un aplauso. Can't wait to see the great things that will happen there, and we know that you're going to do an amazing job. We thank our WISD board members who believe in the vision and mission of this conference, and I would be remiss if I would not also thank the WISD teachers and administrators and other staff members who answered the call to present at this conference. How powerful it is when teachers are teaching teachers. Without a doubt, your hard work, your expertise, and willingness to share will help us reach all learners. Thank you to our Deputy Superintendent, Mr. Abel Aguilar, Assistant Superintendents, Mrs. Beatriz Solano. We want to thank also Assistant Superintendent Mrs. Lisa Gomez. Where is Lisa? She is right here. And Mr. Dan Buttermer, I don't know if Mr. Buttermer is here, whose support and guidance is invaluable. And to accomplish the conference goals, we need the vision and the guidance of a leader. And at the forefront of ensuring everyone comes together as one district, one family, and one community, I'm stealing your words, for the benefit of all children is our superintendent, Dr. Dino Coronado. In the short time that he has been leading the district, I believe it's about 100 days at this point, más o menos. At the short time that he's been leading the district, he has inspired, motivated, and equipped all our staff to continue our journey to be the best that we can be for our students. Would you be so kind to please welcome to the stage our superintendent, Dr. Dino Coronado, who will share some words.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Good morning to everybody. Good morning. They told me I had a couple hours, but I said, well, I don't know if I can talk for a couple hours, so I'll try to make this as brief as I can. How about another round of applause for our conjunto here? I think that's great. So they don't know this yet, but I'm going to make this commitment to you all. I am a huge fan of conjunto and Tejano music, and I love the accordion. But as my mom says, I dance like Herman Munster. Some of you may not know who that is, but I love music, but I'm probably the least talented person there is when it comes to music. I can't sing, dance, play an instrument, or anything like that. So hopefully, with the help of the kids up here, and they're here, I would like to challenge myself to play the accordion next year at this same conference and have one song. So I have a very unique story. My parents are first generation Mexican Americans. Both my grandparents are from Mexico. Now, I grew up an Army brat, and that's just what it's called, an Army brat. So your parents my dad was in the military. And so one of the hardest thing about being an Army brat is that you're exposed to various cultures. As families, you move around. I was, people ask me all the time, where are you from? And I wish I could say where I was from. But as an Army brat, I was born in Germany. I got a year-round tan. I moved from Germany to Fort Polk, Louisiana. My dad went to Vietnam. We moved to Illinois, and then we moved to Fort Hood, and then moved back to Illinois. And so I've moved around a lot. And one of the things, and this is why I'm an advocate of bilingual and dual language education, especially for our kids, because I think I experienced subtractive education. My parents spoke to me in Spanish. And so everything growing up was in Spanish, but I was only allowed to speak in English. Yes, I'm one of those Mexicans. So I was only allowed to speak in English. And so every time, but then we would spend summers at my grandpa's house in Leon, in Mexico. And so my Spanish had to kick in. All my broken Spanish and my cousins and spoke to us in their broken English, and we communicated because the international language, right, for being kind is a smile, and so that's how we're not deaf, so it doesn't mean you have to speak louder. We understand, but a smile goes a long way. So in my military years, we come across various cultures, and I was deployed all over the world, and understood fragments of Korean and German and some Farsi and some other different languages. But one thing that I always hung on to as a Mexican American was my culture. My parents, even though I didn't have mastery of Spanish, like I want our children to, I never lost sight of my culture. And my parents ingrained this is who you are as a person, as an American. But you have some strong, deep-rooted roots in your Mexican culture. And so I just want to make sure that our children, especially on the border, have or never lose sight of our own culture. All of us share a common ancestry, and sometimes they're our language. And as Americans, we have butchered every single language that comes to the United States. Right? I mean, we really have. We've butchered the English language. We've butchered the Spanish language. We've butchered every other language that comes because we make it our own. But that's okay. That's okay. Our ability to communicate starts with a smile. And that's what I want us to support. I'm so excited about our Dual Language Academy here in Weslaco ISD. And it's going to take all of us together to do that. And so July 4th marks my 3 months on the job. And I'll tell you, it feels like 3 years sometimes. I was criticized the other day because I said I have been having fun. Well, aren't you supposed to have fun at work? I mean, isn't this job supposed to be fun anyway? So I can't believe some people would criticize because I'm actually having fun. And I hope that all year that we're having fun, because learning is supposed to be fun. So I hope you take that to heart. I want all of us to have fun, a supportive year. And, when you're dealing with kids, if you cannot smile at kids, man, you are in the wrong profession, right? They will make you laugh. You've seen it on TV. Kids say the funniest things. It is amazing what kids say to you, because there's, especially in kinder, they're so honest, and it's, if you can't leave at the end of the day and just laugh, then maybe you need to go somewhere else, and this job is fun, but you gotta be happy with yourself too. So take that, and I hope that you are having fun. Let's have a great year. Again, thank you so much. Again, congratulations, Dr. Lopez, for leading the charge for all of this, and we look forward to having the Dual Language Academy. So thank you very much.
So we thank Dr. Coronado for these words. We appreciate you, Doctor. I'd like to pass this place over to Dr. Carolina Lopez, who will be presenting our general speaker. So I will come back in just a few minutes. Dr. Lopez.
Good morning and buenos dias. It was an amazing feeling to enter and just see everybody come together as a team and make this happen. It really just warms my heart. But today I'm here not to celebrate, despite the congratulations, which thank you, but this isn't about me. This is about each and every one of you and what you do for our students every single day, even when you're not on contract, like today where it's your summer. And I heard a teacher tell me this morning, I'm not going on a shopping spree, but I'm here today. And my husband was like, what? You're not going on a shopping spree? So thank you. It says a lot about your heart. It says a lot about the cariño that you have and the grace that you bring your students. Today, I want to introduce to you someone very special to me, and that is Dr. Amy Mattis. Dr. Amy Mattis attended Weslaco ISD from elementary until she graduated from Weslaco High School in 1975. She then attended Howard Payne University, where she received a Bachelor's of Arts degree, majoring in Spanish and sociology in 1979. She earned her bilingual and ESL certification pre-K through 6th grade from Our Lady of the Lake University and the University of Texas at Brownsville. She taught elementary, high school, recent immigrants, and pre-kindergarten, a grade level that rekindled the desire to further her studies and return to do graduate work. She earned her Master of Education with an emphasis in early childhood education and multicultural studies from the University of Texas Pan American. In addition, Dr. Martes received her doctoral degree in educational leadership in 2014. She has over 35 years of educational experience. Her work at the Region 1 Education Service Center provided opportunities to train teachers in various topics related to bilingual and ESL education, literacy development, Spanish language development, and assessment. She was coordinator for the Bilingual ESL Instructional Services Program and project director for the state-sponsored Teacher Mentor Institutes, training teachers across the region and state as a master trainer. She has presented Beyond Our Borders for the International Reading Association in Congreso Internacional de Lectura in Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico, and Monterrey, Nuevo León, Mexico. She was active with the RGV Texas Association for Bilingual Education, or RGV-TAVE, and served in various roles as secretary, treasurer, and president. She has also presented in theological and cultural issues in Nicaragua as a missionary. Beyond these great accolades, she is also a dear friend. Please help me welcome Dr. Amy Mattis back home with a warm round of applause. And we thank Dr. Mattis for her words of inspiration.
Bienvenidos. Wow, ya quería llorar. If you saw the title of my slide, it said, My Story, My Legacy, My Joy. You know, usually in keynotes, it's not a training session. It's telling you a story, right? And it feels great to be here because in 1968, I came to Weslaco ISD as an English learner, okay? And I am so happy. I have mi mamacita and my brothers and sisters with me for support. Isn't that awesome? That's our culture, guys. That's our culture. You know, when I was little, my mom used to say that I talk too much. And I said, well, I wouldn't have the job that I had for over 35 years if I didn't talk too much, right? So I'm real happy to be here with you. Lest we forget, I will tell you the story. You know, when I looked up the phrase, lest we forget, it was an expression of remembrance, right? And we cannot forget every child that goes through our classroom, okay? Because you will find lots of Amy's in your classroom, okay? I want to thank Mr. Trevino, Dr. Lopez, for thinking of me to kick off this conference. You know, they could have called anybody, but as I was preparing for this, I went like, oh my gosh, like, I went through so much in Weslaco, right? But this is my story. At times, it looked kind of thorny. That's my little cactus, and my husband laughs at me, tú y tus nopales, right? But let me tell you, they're delicious too. It's like, you know, we eat a lot of those thanks to my mother. But, you know, I read somewhere that I should never build my life on borrowed foundations. Because if those move, then I might lose my job because you're borrowing from somebody else. I must build on my own roots, such as simplicity, faith, love, and joy, which are great foundations for building any life, right? Regardless of where you came from. So my story begins, and I knew I wasn't, there you go. You know, when they told me that Weslaco had celebrated over 100 years, now it's over 100 years, I would be remiss not to mention my mother's mother, and I call her the matriarch. Evangelina Leal Terán was a pioneer in Weslaco. Her and her husband had a little house on Bridge and First. Yesterday, we passed by there, or the day before yesterday, and it's completely changed. Somebody must have bought it and they remodeled it, and it looks awesome. But, you know, it's like a flood of memories just came, you know, because that little house for the longest time, when my mom and I would come and visit her, it was the only house for miles, okay, in Weslaco. It was just fields and fields and fields. And one time it was raining real hard, and the bus dropped us off on Bridge, on the corner of Bridge and 83, because they couldn't go into the streets, right, in those days. And I remember it was pouring. I don't really remember how old I was, but this truck stopped by, and it was the milkman. Who remembers when milk was delivered to your houses? That's how old I am, you know. Like I know I look pretty good, but it's like, let me tell you, I've gone through a lot of stuff. My husband said he remembers that milk truck. But this truck stopped, and he goes, where are y'all going? And I said, we're going to go to my grandma's house, you know, to Evangelina's. Oh, la borrada. Because her eyes were kind of borraditos, you know. And go, yeah, súbanse. And and it looked like we would never get there, right? Because there was no houses, there was nothing, only their little house at the very corner. So this is where I come from, okay? But a little more background. My grandmother was a child bride. And, sometimes we want to tell you all the good stuff that happened in our lives. But, there's some bumps on the road, right? When my grandmother married my grandfather, he was 30, she was 15. In those days, that happened a lot. Well, 3 kids later, she could not take the abuse. I mean, she was a child herself. So she left 2 boys and a girl, the girl being my mother. Okay, she was 5 years old. My grandmother was the oldest of 13 children. Can you imagine? So, you don't blame her for getting married with a 30-year-old man, right? But when that happened, and I'm sure a lot of things happened in between, she remarried Don Ezequiel Rodriguez, and that's how we would call him, Don Ezequiel. He was a long-time City of Weslaco employee. He retired from there, and they had 3 more sons who were my uncles. So that little house on the corner holds a lot of memories, for us. My grandpa stayed in Mexico and raised his 3 children. They included my mother, but he remarried a Syrian Lebanese lady. Talking about multicultural, Dr. Coronado. I even have her passport when she came on a merchant ship and landed somewhere on the coast where there was a port in Mexico. And so when my grandpa married this Lebanese lady, and her name was Manira Mansour, she raised my mother. She didn't have any family of her own. She just raised my uncles and my mom. Her family disowned her for marrying outside her ethnicity. How times have changed now, right? When my mom met my dad, he promised her, one of these days, I'm going to take you to see your mom. Okay? Oops, went too far. That was my mom. That is my mom. Wasn't she gorgeous? Her hair would come all the way down to the hem of her dress. It was like, oh my gosh, how do you wash your hair? How do you comb your hair? We would always ask her because it was beautiful. And in that picture, she was pregnant with my 3rd brother. Just, can you imagine? I come from good roots, right? But my mom's wish was always to see her biological mom, right? I mean, anybody's desire. From her relatives, she knew who her mother was. She just never got to see her. So my father, when he met her, and then they got married, he says, when I get married, I'll go take you to meet your mom, right? That was mom's wish. And Juan de la Cruz was my dad. He was a wanderer with a gypsy heart. He liked to go here and there. He worked during the Bracero time, and he met Johnny Cockburn. Johnny Cockburn was a banker and a rancher. And in those days, during Bracero time, you could have a sponsor, okay? And it was so easy to become a resident, not just a visa, to cross, but an actual resident so that they could live here. And Mr. Cockburn was from Lampasas, Texas, had a huge ranch. He worked at a bank in Austin. And my mom tells us that he used to fly a helicopter to his ranch and to Austin. How nice, right? So when he was looking for laborers, but not just laborers, he was looking for a foreman he invited my dad. And he became their sponsor. And thus our story began in the United States. Because my parents, they were from Ciudad Victoria, Tamaulipas, and they meet this gringuito, you know, and it is like, and we loved him to death because if it wasn't for him, none of us would be here, right? So I guess you can call him our padrino, right? It's like if we talk about padrinos. There you go. No, I went too far. Yeah, there. So there's my mom and my dad, and my mom is already pregnant, I think, with a second child, and which is my sister, Lori. And that's me as a baby, and I was taking my first steps, and I was probably the only one that actually got to see my dad taking their first steps, you know, because there's 5 of us, and my dad, talking about a gypsy heart, he was all over the place, right? So we spent a couple of years in Lampasas. Then our gypsy dad took us to California. We went to Ed Cauchelsa. We came to Weslaco. And if you ask my brothers and sisters, they were all born in different places, you know. Same mother and same father, I have to add that. But it was kind of exciting, you know, like to hear his stories of where he traveled. He even ended up in Chicago, Illinois. Oh, and I learned how to say Illinois, not Illinois. Because then I went to live in Depew, Illinois at one time. So my dad worked in Chicago during the civil rights movement. What a story, right? And I remember him telling us and amazing stories, and some funny, some not so funny. But he would tell us how, you know, if you were for the civil rights movement, you had to have your lights on your cars, whether it was daytime or nighttime, you know, you have to have them on. And if you didn't, somebody jumped on your car and say, hey, how come you don't have these lights on? But one day, it happened that there was a lot of traffic, and my dad had a car wreck. And this is where his humor comes in. He says, no, hombre, me dieron un trancazo tan fuerte y había una zapatería enfrente del choque. So right in front of the wreck, there was a shoe store. And the impact threw him into the shoe store y salió con zapatos nuevos. You know, that was my dad. But, you know, we stayed in Mexico. Even though he lived he worked in Chicago, we went to Mexico. We stayed over there for almost 7 years. So talking about the roots of our culture, we lived there for almost 7 years. I went to an all-girls school, okay, an elementary, Escuela Lauro Aguirre, that is still there. And my sisters attended there also. I finished the whole elementary. And I went to Escuela Secundaria Federalizada, and that was, la secundaria was equivalent to 7th grade, but actually I was taking chemistry, biology, so it was really like a first year of high school, you know. But my mom was such a visionary. There was a teacher from Brownsville that moved to Ciudad Victoria and opened El Instituto de Inglés George Washington. And my mother says, you gotta go there, you know? So she made a sacrifice because, you know, I was going to school, and in the afternoons, I would go and take English classes. Man, I could whip up that English book, you know? But we didn't have anybody to practice with. So I could read it and probably even write it, but I couldn't speak it, okay? So remember, we were all born in the US, right? And many of you have those kinds of kids. I remember when I was a teacher, the kids would come in Semana Santa and they would leave, you know, like we would just get like the long weekend, right? No, ellos se iban por 2 semanas. It's like Semana Santa, It's like they would go on vacation and they wouldn't come back. No, we left and we stayed gone for a long time. Well, my beautiful mother wanted better for her kids. And her birth mother, by this time, remember, she's already had a relationship with her birth mother, said, all your kids are U.S. citizens. What's wrong with you? They should be in the States. So my mom, with all her sacrifice, picked up all 5 of us. I remember riding on a bus, seeing the white lines on the highway, like, ay, nunca se van a acabar, like that. I kept seeing the lines and I was like, where is she taking us? Like I'm leaving my school, my friends, our house. And let me tell you, it doesn't matter where you come from, right? I told you, our kitchen had a dirt floor, and the roof was palm trees, palm leaves. But we were so proud of that house. We didn't know we were poor. Kids, right? But we would say, like, how come my dad is in the U.S.? You would think that we were rich, right? But actually, we never thought that we were poor, and many of us have gone through that, right? They go, like, didn't you know that you didn't have all these things? No, we just enjoyed life, right? Those were our joys, right? So that's what I looked like when in 1968. I look better now, right? So this year, 1968, if some of you bilingual ESL teachers remember, 1968 was when the Bilingual Education Act became law. I didn't know this when I was 12 or 13 years old, right? But everything was sink or swim. And, I remember talking to Dr. Lopez, and she goes, make them laugh, make them, like, I want to make you laugh, but you have to know the background. You have to know that what I went through to get here, right? So sometimes, like I said, those bumps in the road, those little cactus have little thorns, and then you'll see the tuna and the little flowers, and you go, that's where I want to get. Well, that year, they enrolled us because schools didn't even know what bilingual education was at that time. I was enrolled, along with my brothers and sisters, in a self-contained school. And I won't mention the name, because he was here. I won't mention the name. But, kids can be cruel sometimes. And there was 5 of us, and in the neighborhood, we were called los mojaditos, los retardaditos, if they could see us now, right? It's like, and I don't say that lightly or hurtful, because kids don't know any better. And more than likely, all 5 of us were the true U.S. citizens because we were actually born here. We never swam across, so we were not mojaditos, right? But when I was a teacher at 13 with my brothers and sisters. We would go home, and in that self-contained special ed, we had one classroom that belonged to the English learners. We had one Anglo-American teacher and one Hispanic who was an assistant teacher, like a teacher assistant or paraprofessional, right? We got home, and everything that Ms. Tijerina told us, I make sure that we repeated everything, and we practice and practice and practice at home, right? She was the start of those educators who influenced my life and probably the life of my brothers and sisters. These educators that I'm going to tell you shortly about gave us confidence. They saw that we were capable. They were calm, very patient. We love to talk real fast because we're Hispanic. Mexicans talk real fast. I said, take your time. And boy, when they would tell you, take your time, that it made a difference, right? They care for us without even knowing, going through strategies, educational strategies for English learners, right? When they told me the title of the conference, right away I thought, cuando los maestros luchan con cariño for all students, the students know it, they feel it, right? Because you believe as teachers that they can do it, and they achieve, and they know it, okay? That's our joy too, okay? So Lydia Tijerina was that teacher assistant. And if you're original from Weslaco, you might know her. She's not Tijerina anymore. She's the founder of Jolly's Shoes. Does anybody know Miss Tijerina or Lydia? Okay, this special lady, like I said, didn't have a teaching title or anything, but she had been around enough. She would say, this is a bottle, that is a bottle, and several. Those are bottles. I go, I can do that. This is a pencil, that is a pencil, those are pencils. Teachers, do you remember sentence patterns? She was doing it, okay? So what did I do? At my house, and they might not remember, because we're all in our 60s, but I remember because I was a teacher, right? And I would tell them, look, that's a window, this is a window, those are windows, And we named everything in the house, And that's how you learn, right? You practice. But it all started with a paraprofessional, okay? Miss Tijerina made us bilingual. Sí, señor. We were bilingual by that time. The principal came during the Christmas holidays and told us, vámonos, ustedes van a Houston Elementary. I went like, oh, that's good. Like they're going to take us to the real school, right? Because we weren't in the real school. We were in a special ed unit, remember? What we say and what we do matters in the classroom, right? Dr. Gonzalez wasn't a doctor at the time. She was my English language arts teacher. She wanted to know about me. And it was real funny because she had a round table, and then she had the rest of the kids. And she would ask me, how far along did you go to school in Mexico? And I would tell her, And I said, teacher, you're putting all the English sentences on the chalkboard. That's when we had chalkboards, right? And all that grammar and diagramming a sentence, I already know that. Remember, I had finished 7th grade. I was going into 8th grade. When I came here, they put me in the 6th grade. I don't think you can do that anymore, right? And guess who was the principal in that school? One of my mentors, Tony Rico. He knew me by name, I guarantee you, because iba todos los días a molestarlo. Pero Mr. Rico, I'm supposed to be in the 8th grade, and they had me here in 6th grade, and I already know everything that the teachers are teaching, right? He goes, no, you need to know more English, And then he would tell me, but all the students in your class are the same age as you. Ay, pues qué mensos. I mean, it's like, it's not my fault, right? They were all younger. But see, I went to 1st grade when I was 5 years old. I mean, that's how much I liked school, right? So, Mrs. Gonzalez had SRA kids. Who remembers those SRA kids? I mean, I'm 66, so those have been around for a long time. The SRA kids were reading comprehension stories, right? And they had all different colors. And she'd say, you know what? Everything that I'm teaching the class, you already know it. And, but I would tell her, but English is kind of backwards, no? Like, they mess up the order of the words in the sentence. And she says, what do you mean? I said, yo digo vaso morado. And you say purple glass. And she says, yeah, it's the word order, you know, it's a little bit different. I said, well, I just have to learn it the wrong English way. That's okay. That's what I would tell the English teacher, right? But you know what? Mrs. Gonzalez saw my capability. She knew what I could do, even on my own. So she gave me that big old SRA kit, okay? And she would just tell me, whenever you finish, just let me know. So I was over there in friega, you know, reading and answering all the questions. And I would yell, I finished yellow, teacher. Okay. And then I would go on, I finished blue. I went through every single color throughout the year. I think purple was the highest, you know. So I finished yellow, orange, blue, red, you know, all the colors. I was so excited. But you know, what you say and do as a teacher matters. It wasn't so much she was teaching me directly, but she was allowing me to expand that vocabulary that I needed. I needed more practice, you know, and she saw that. You know, at one time, and I still, you know, once an English learner, always an English learner. My poor husband, you know, he goes, that's not how you say it. I know, pero me entendiste, ¿verdad? It's like, but I couldn't say available for the life of me. I would say available. Have you ever heard somebody say it wrong and it's like, I say it like that all the time. Well, this teacher took the time and she goes, you know, this is an adult, okay? So you know the guy that bombed Oklahoma, McVeigh? I go, yeah. Say, okay, you see, yeah, okay. So say, available. Ah, nombre, I never forgot. You know? But it's little things like that. You take the time. What you say and do matters, right? Teaching is beautiful. Teaching is fun, like Dr. Coronado said. Look, y'all might remember some of these names. Andrés Elizondo, El Coloradito, right? He was my science teacher in the 6th grade, okay? He was so patient with me. Just say it, pero despacito. Just say it slow. You know, it was like he had such patience with me because he wanted me to learn, right? He would give me extra time just so that I could learn it. Mr. Joe Sherrill was another one. He was a mentor to me. He was my homeroom teacher. Tall man. His wife was the speech therapist. You know, it was during this time when there was teachers with a yardstick, and the girls, we couldn't wear pants yet. We wore skirts, dresses, right? So our legs were bare. And he would walk around, if you spoke Spanish, with that yardstick on your calves. English, English, English. You know, it was like, you know, it was like that. Your calves burned, right? But, you know, they didn't know any better, right? Honestly, they didn't know any better. So they would punish us, and we couldn't have recess for speaking Spanish, so they made us eat our lunch in the classroom. What a punishment, right? It was hot outside. I'd rather be in the classroom. So, of course, yo iba a hablar español, right? It's like, let me be inside. Well, that's when Mr. Sherrill will introduce us to American food, and I would give him my papas con huevo, chorizo con huevo, or whatever, my taquitos, and he would share his ham and cheese. You know, we didn't eat ham and cheese at home, you know. But to me, that was a treat. and I got to practice English and a little bit of other culture. I had never babysat. He introduced me to babysitting, and that I could babysit and get paid for it. That was awesome, right? So he had some teachers that had kids, and they wanted to go out. They would come all the way al barrio, because, I lived across the tracks. They would come and pick me up, take me to babysit, and bring me back. That was pretty good, I thought, man, and I get paid. And, I was involved in a lot of things in school. So I had to eat lunch inside. Wow. That was okay. Because, and my husband's going to laugh, but I used to tell jokingly, right? Remember the rulers that had, and they're still there, the numbers, but they're like sticking out? And they would hit me, like, English, English. And I would go home and I go, mamá, mire, tengo los numeritos pintados ahí. Because I only speak Spanish, right? Back then you could do that. You can't do that now. Lolo te reportan. It's like, right? I mean, that's the truth, right? So these are some of the teachers that influenced me. Well, in 1970, and you'll keep me with my time, because I want to make sure that you'll have enough time for your breakout sessions. Tony Rico was one of those persons that I call my guardian angel, okay? Because Tony Rico was my principal in elementary. Then I moved to junior high, and back then it was junior high, and he became principal at Mary Ho Junior High. And you can see the little circle, Mary Ho Junior High. I'm such a peck, is it peck red or red peck? Whatever. But I have them. Okay. So I kept all these ID cards. And let me tell you, sometimes it pays to pack stuff away, right? When I applied for my passport, the department, I got a real nasty letter from the Department of Justice. We're investigating all the people that were born in the U.S. with a what? With a midwife. And I went, ay, mamá, ¿por qué no me dijiste que I was born with a midwife, right? So they wanted proof that I had been in school in the U.S. Saqué todas mis ID cards. You want more proof? I did go to school in the U.S. But, even though I had a smile on my face, and I had people like Tony Rico that were our guardian angels, if you see the cloud, that's my dad. That's how I remember him, okay? And many people talk about Mexico and like, ay, even mi mamacita, no es de México porque ya están matando gente. I go, ay, mom, they kill you for free everywhere, like, don't worry about it, like, we'll be okay. But, I remember on that year, it was May 15th, and I was in Depew, Illinois with an uncle because he needed help babysitting. And I told my mom, let me go so I can learn more English, like I had never been out of Texas, so I wanted to go over there. So, okay, go with your Tio Vito, so I went. I called home and my daddy's at home. Remember I told you about my dad? He was a wanderer, right? He was all over the place. But this time, we're already in the U.S. Now he was living in Mexico. Like, what's wrong with this picture, right? And he came, and I talked to him on the phone. Ay, mijita, why are you over there? How come you're not with your mother, right? Él quería que estuviera con mi mamacita. I go, pues tú no estás en la casa, right? He wasn't at home, so you weren't there to ask you for permission, right? So my mom said that I could go. Well, I said, if you promise me that you'll be home, I'll come back, right? Well, guess what? I would call home every 2 weeks. At the end of the month, I call, and nobody answers. And I tell my uncle, I don't know what's going on. Nobody answers at my house. And you know, back in those days, everybody answered the phone once you had a phone, right? And so he started calling people. And then he goes, pick up your stuff. And I was like, what? He goes, we got to go back. That phone call was the last time that I talked to my dad. Exactly 2 weeks after, his friend shot him in the back 5 times. You know, I hardly tell this story because, honestly, that's not part of me, but it made me who I am. Because everything that happens in your life has a purpose, okay? Everything that happens in your life has a purpose. Whether you learn it, embrace it, is up to you, right? For a long time, I would say, like, nombre, amigos así, ¿pa qué quieres enemigos, right? I mean, if your friend shoots you in the back, right? And there's a lot to the story, but, you know, my dad was a businessman. His picture was all over the newspaper. Not pretty pictures, because, you know, Mexico, the real sensationalists, you know, they, bien amarillistas, they call them, you know, they put all the gore on the newspapers. And I said, you know, I don't want to remember that. I want to remember him like this, right? So for the longest time, when things would happen in my life, I graduated from high school. Oh, how he wanted me to learn English, and he would have been so proud, you know. I went off to college, he would have been so proud. I knew that my mom had gone through hell and back, right? Supporting 5 kids, and you guys, we always stayed together. You know, in that era, a lot of the families that had a lot of kids, they go, tú vete con tu abuelita, or tú vete con tu tía, you know, and they would separate the kids, and they were raised by other people and not by your mom. And my mom wouldn't do that. She says, they're my kids, we're gonna support them, you know, I'm gonna support them. And even though I had this dark cloud, I knew that my life was not all just that, right? There was something to my life. And I used to rationalize in my mind, okay, I think God just didn't want him to be with us, right? I mean, you start thinking all these things. But deep in my heart, I said, you know what? My dad was not going to keep his promise, okay? And God took him. I mean, like, he'll use any ways and means, you know. Many times we question why things happen, you know. Why, you hear a lot of books, you know, why do good things happen, or why do bad things happen to good people, right? And we say, there's always a purpose in your life, okay? But life continued for me. Look at that. In that circle, you can barely see me, but I was a kittenette, okay? We have a saying in Spanish, nadie sabe lo que llevas en el morral, más nada más la que lo lleva cargado, ¿verdad? No one knows what's inside the sack, only the one that's carrying it. And that was me, right? We have to be vigilant of our students in our classroom, because many times you'll get those Amy's that they have gone through traumatic experiences, and you don't know why they misbehave, why they act the way they do, why they say certain things. As teachers, we need to get to know them, we need to embrace them, we need to, you know, not be the friend and buddy that you want, because you can't, you know, when you have 35 kids. But if you see a kid acting differently, there's something going on, right? So it's good to get to know them, talk to them, involve them, find out what they like to do. You know, I used to share this in my strategies whenever I did trainings. At the beginning of school, I would always ask the kids, what is your very favorite thing that you like? And, I taught pre-KK, some of my kids. Oh, I love turtles. I love airplanes or whatever they like, right? And I would write down, Juanito likes airplanes, Jose likes turtles. And I would write down everything. I would become really good friends with a librarian. And she would pick out books. So every week I had books that related to the things that the kids liked, okay? And then I would ask them, would you like for me to read it? Or would you like to take it home, have your mom read it, and then you come tell us about it? Do you see those kids? They were just like, oh, como pavo reales, right? Like a big old peacock. They blossom, right? Because you were taking the time, to know them, okay? This is how I was. And I put Coach Klecker up there because she was one of those teachers that, she was my coach, right? She instilled discipline, teamwork. She would say, individually, you had to work out. I hated those bleachers. Oh my God. Y pues estaba más flaquita, it was like, but I still didn't like those bleachers. We had to go up and down those bleachers. But when it was game time, all for one and one for all, she would tell us. And, that stayed with me because that stays in your life. I had a very hard time being a team player for the longest time because I was very independent. I wanted to do things my way, but, God taught me that it doesn't happen that way, that I had to cooperate. So what do you see here? The many faces of Amy, I call it. When I put these pictures together, it was, the one on top is, when I first got here and then how I started changing, right? Until now. But on Wednesday, I went to my Círculo de Oración. Every Wednesday morning, we have a group of ladies in my church, and we pray for all the needs in our church. And we had a little Bible study about Joseph. And if you know the song of Dolly Parton, the Coat of Many Colors, you know that song, right? Or if you know the Bible story of Joseph, Joseph had a whole bunch of brothers, and they were kind of envious because he was the favorite of his dad. And what did they do? Well, they sold him. They threw him in a cave, in a hole, to make a long story short. And he had that coat of many colors, right, when he was sold into slavery. Well, the years passed, and Joseph became second to the Pharaoh, okay? And then there was a famine in the land, in Egypt, and his family didn't have any food to eat. And when I tell you that everything that happens in your life, like the death of my dad, us leaving Mexico, going back and forth, hay un propósito. There's a purpose in everything that happens. Joseph, when he saw his brothers, he had all the food. God gave him that insight to put away food for those bad times, right? And the brothers recognized Joseph, and they said, oh man, he's not going to give us any food because look what we did to him. And you know what Joseph said? You didn't do this to me. It was God's purpose for me to be here so he could help them. You see? If he hadn't been there, if he hadn't gone through all that, if they had not sold him into slavery, he wouldn't be where he was at, So many times the bumps on the road that we go through, we go, man, like, ¿por qué? ¿Y por qué? Don't ever ask por qué. It's like, what can I do? How can I change it to make it better? So what am I learning from this tragedy or from this experience, right? We have to do that. I have to tell you this. You know, when you see that, there was a seams. How much time do I have? Okay. I'll tell you this little short story. Across the street from my house was a seamstress, la señora Juanita. And I would go and buy material, a zipper, and the color of the material, right? And I would take her a picture of the dress that I wanted her to make me. And I go, Juanita, ¿me hace un vestido? Sí, mija. Y le limpio la casa. Ah, bueno. So all day long, man, I cleaned toilets, I swept and mopped and everything, and she would make me the dress. Okay? Do you all remember that? You know, those are the experiences that now we can appreciate, you know, when somebody, ay, qué mona andas, si supieras, you know, like, if you only knew, right? And I had a friend in college that she wanted to borrow some clothes. And after she saw my closet, she told me, I like your style, very minimalist. No luxuries or fancy brand names. I said, oh, it's called poverty. But minimalist sounds good. That's confidence, my friends. And she left without borrowing my clothes. So, just real quick, those were my ID cards from high school. The last picture, I ran for Miss Weslaco. How about that? Ooh. But I have to tell you, I didn't win. But I tell you why. I wore a red dress with gold gloves. I was ready to kill. I was dressed to kill, but not to win. But you know what? That is Amy Mattis. I became a doctor because I promised my mother that she was going to have a doctor in the family, okay? And I dedicated my dissertation to her, you know. So I am a published author, but that's the only thing. But I have many stories that one of these days, and I hope before I die, that I do publish them. But, you know, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. God sent me a wonderful man. There's me. I have my legacy, my son Giovanni, and has 2 sons. My daughter Gina, and has 2 daughters, Mia and Natalia. And like a Mexican mother, las espantaba con el cucuy, con la llorona, you know, so like even my sisters remember, you know, all my, my nursery rhymes. I didn't know anything about Mary Had a Little Lamb, you know, it was like, Señora Santana, porque llora el niño, you know, but that was my kind of nursery rhyme, right? I had a very nice Mexican wedding with my husband. I did divorce from my first one. I was a single mom for over 20 years, and he always wondered, like, what was wrong? How come you didn't never remarry, right? Well, I had a boy and a girl. Life happened, right? So there were too many things in between. But that verse in Solomon, I have found the one whom my soul loves. That's my hubby. And poor thing, because now he has to speak Spanish a lot and teach me more English, right? And this is my beautiful mother now, and my brothers and sisters. My mom only went to the 3rd grade, but she made sure that her legacy of education continue. She had educators, a doctor, very successful businessman. We have grandkids that are business owners, speech therapists, information technology, many educators. We have a medical student going right now that's going to be a doctor. All of this from Doña Queta. because she stood her ground, she kept her kids. That's our legacy. So what's going to be your legacy? You know, I thank you for being part of my library. It says that we don't have to have too many books, just a few, the ones that matter, right? So create your story, create your legacy, and then share your joys with others, because teaching is fun. Enjoy the rest of your conference.